Y'all, I'm Hope here at Crafty Hope, and welcome. It is week 4 of the Seek, Gather, Create challenge. This is a challenge that takes place twice a year, and each time it lasts for 4 weeks, and this is the final week of the second season of the year. This challenge mostly takes place on Instagram. It comes from 3 hostesses: Lisa Goddard, Tina Hoyce, and Laura Dennison. I'll have their links below. This season of it, they also have 4 guest artists, 1 each week. This week it is Tina Walker. Again, I'll have her link below. I encourage you to check out the hostesses and the guest artists to learn more about this challenge. But basically, it's a mixed media scavenger hunt challenge in which each week they give you 4 prompts to seek and gather and create with, and create whatever you want. So weeks 1 and 3 I did assemblages, and week 2 I did a necklace. So I will have links to at least one of them up here. This week the prompts are, let me go ahead and tell you first, I have not finished seeking and gathering. We'll get to that in a second. So the prompts are something vintage, a game piece, the color indigo or dark blue, and dip it. It is that last prompt there that I wanted to talk about first, because I immediately was like, I want to dip something in a rust tea bath or something like that. But I'm out of rusty tea, so I thought I'd show you what I'm using. I have some rusty bits here in this jar. I don't know, some screws and a drill bit, and I don't even know what all is in there. And I have some black tea that I brewed, and I'm just gonna put this black tea in here. My tea bags in here to dry, I think. And I am going to cover it up and put it in my fridge until I am ready to use it. But that was one of my prep things I wanted to mention. Once I finish seeking and gathering everything else, I'll be back to explain what I have. It's been a bit. I've been thinking on this, and y'all, I'm all over the place. So let's talk about what the prompts are. So something vintage is the one that has absolutely thrown me, because anything that's 25 years or older is vintage. Anything that's before the year 2000 is vintage. Y'all, that does not seem right. It should not. It should be like the 70s and earlier and older. I mean, this is vintage, right? But no, vintage is 25 years or older. So I have a niece that is vintage then. That's crazy. All right, so I've pulled out quite a few things. I guess the first thing is pictures. And because of one of the other prompts, I looked for pictures that have kids on them. But I might go and get some other vintage photos. We'll see. That's vintage. I've got some old buttons. This is it's an old piece of paper that I did an eco print on. So, yeah, the paper itself is vintage. I've got several things here that are antique, if not vintage. This is from 1907. So it's got papers that are in here. This is from 1953. It's a letter in some other language. This is what did I see the date on this one? This is a letter from 1929. And then this is a diary from, I'm not even sure, y'all. I really am not even sure. What did have me cracking up, I'll show you. 1946, 1948. Yeah. So my birthday is in October, and October's birthstone is the opal, and the symbol of opal is hope. I find lots of correlations in like my name and things like that all the time, so I just think that's funny. So this is a diary from the 40s, all vintage. I also pulled out some keys. They are vintage. I've thought of getting more buttons out and papers and anything, y'all. Anything I have that's from high school is vintage. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay. So the next thing is a game piece, and I have a problem. I'm serious. I just bought this. I think it was like, I don't remember how many pounds, at least 2 pounds of game pieces from Ricky of the Bricolage Factory and Ricky Ticky Taffy. So I have plenty of these. These were the ones I had before, and I think I've got a drawer somewhere else with more like Monopoly pieces and things like that. So I have plenty of game pieces from which to choose. And I think, again, it's overload. I need to just pull out some things and say, okay, this is what I'm going to use. Make something. The color indigo or dark blue. I do have some golden fluid acrylic in indigo. So that actually says indigo on it. But I've got some craft paint in midnight blue. And of course, any of the distress items in Uncharted Mariner. Blueprint sketch is probably appropriate too. So, and then dip it. And y'all saw what I pulled out. Yeah, I've got that rusty ink, not ink, tea. Oh my gosh. I need to just get working. Yeah, I'm going to maybe go find some kind of substrate. I've gone and bought a couple things even, but I realized that this challenge is about seeking and gathering mostly from your house or the stash that you have, and it feels, but yeah, so I'm not going to use some of the things I bought, but it was an idea. Now I just have to figure out what I'm going to do with everything else. Oh, heavens to Betsy. I mean, look, I just like that. What if I just do that and dip it in something? I have to add a game piece. Ah! Okay. We'll figure this out. I have lace. Lace is good too. That's vintage. See what I'm talking about? Everything is vintage. So many options. Y'all, the plethora of options really had me in a standstill, and I finally sat down and just flipped through the photos I had, pulled out just a selection of the game pieces. You can see I added some Scrabble pieces too, and I kept thinking of other things like grabbing some dye and I was overwhelmed. But I finally grabbed this wood substrate that it's from Michael's, I think. It's in there, like, it's 99 cents. It's just a little wood box. It's great. And sorted through a bunch of the photos I had, and I had this group of like kids, and it's got to be like from the 50s or so, just based on what they're wearing. It reminds me of pictures of my mom when she was little, so it's got to be late 50s, early 60s, somewhere in there. And I went and scanned it and then printed it out on some photo paper. I don't know. I felt like I might dip it and I didn't want to ruin the original. So yeah, I scanned it and cut it down to kind of get a better eye of it. And then I started thinking about how in the picture, they kind of look like they're looking on the ground, looking at things, finding things, doing what I do, which is walk around with my head down, picking things up. So I was like, well, what if I, included a game piece and buttons and little things that I like to find and pick up, and have this as like a little found object assemblage. So, I finally got myself in that direction, and so you saw I kind of create a little bowl of some of those things. And then I was like, all right, well, let's start dipping. So here's part of my dipping. I've got that vintage paper that has an eco print on it, and I am dipping it into that rusty tea bath that I made. So you can see, and can you see how like dark gray that turned from that black tea color? I love this stuff. I'm trying to remember. I think I learned this. I don't know. I've heard of a rusty tea from several people, but like the actual like putting it in the fridge and using it, I think was a Amy Bishop technique. So you can see the difference in the colors, that it turned a little gray, but you can still see all the other stuff on there. I love that. I did dry it with my heat tool. And then I turned to my little box. I taped down, it's got 2 different hangers on there. So like a twine and then also a little brass thing. And I'm not sure which one I like yet. So I just taped down that back. I'm going to sand this down a little bit because it is just a cheap little box, and I'm going to paint it. So I'm going to start by painting it. I think that's what I'm going to do next. I've sanded it. That's what would make sense. Yeah, I'm going to paint it with that midnight blue. And I don't paint the back or the back, like all of the back plate, because when I glue things down, I like to have some of the actual surface exposed. So I'm going to paint everything else in this midnight blue, but we'll skip ahead on this. This video is long enough. I think my explanation of my befuddlement about this was long enough. And once I got it painted all blue, I decided I wanted to do a second dip of that, and I really should have done more of an ombre, like kept part of it the original color and then dipped all of the bottom half and then a little bit more. So I'm gonna just dip this, you see, put it in there, let it shake around, put it off to the side, and let a portion of this get a little bit darker. In the end, I don't know that you can see that color variation as much. I think it is funny that some of the lines on the picture line up with where that additional dip line is going, but I don't think it's something you'll ever see. So it was bothering me that I did have something that said Indigo on it and I didn't use it. So here is me adding some of that. This is a golden fluid acrylic in Indigo, and so I'm putting it down with a little bit of water over the top of that other blue. It really doesn't make a difference, y'all. I'm watering it down. It just made me, it eased my conscience. So once I got painted, I turned back to my dipped paper, and you can see there that line is pretty obvious, but once I dry it, it's a little less obvious. So you can see I dried it, I cut it down, I've cut my picture down also into a square to fit on there, and then I was like, what else can I go seek and gather to put in here? And I found it's a seed from a jasmine vine that grows in my yard. I've got a jar full of them. It looks kind of like a dandelion, and I just didn't feel like it made a big enough statement. And I was thinking I wanted maybe a word also, and it hit me that I could put the word found in this little jar. So I'm cutting, I went and typed that up on a little piece of paper. I really should have used a different paper. This one, when I tried to roll it to get it into the jar, it kind of cracks and break. It doesn't break, but it more crinkles than rolls. So yeah, and I was like, okay, maybe I should go retype this. I did ink it up to give it a little more age to it, and I put it in the jar and realized it is moving around quite a bit. So I was like, okay, what can I do to keep it from moving? And I was like, oh, if I put something else in there, it'll hold it in place. So I put that little seed, like I said, it's kind of like a big dandelion fluff. So I put that in there, and it acted like kind of like a spring and expanded in there to hold it in place. Kind of perfect, and it was just totally accidental. So some of that fluff didn't stay in there. I'm just using a toothpick and tweezers to kind of manage all this stuff. Nothing over the top. So I have got that in there. I'm going to start arranging everything. I got, as usual, got a little persnickety, got a little finicky with some of these things. I did know I wanted to lift the photo from that background. And so I'm going to work on some of these little elements individually. So I do sand back some of this. It was feeling rough, and so I sanded the outside edges a little bit, and which gives them also kind of an aged feel to kind of go with the all these vintage items. And then I used this is a what's it called? It's a Tim Holtz. It's like an aging tool thing, a paper aging tool. I can't remember what it's called, but you could use scissors or put your fingernail or anything to just distress the edges of your photo or your focal or whatever. And then I came in with my walnut stain distress ink again and distress the edges to give this even more vintage feel, to make it stand out. And so those cut white edges aren't so obvious. And in the process of this, I did kind of bend the photo in a couple places, and of course getting fingerprints and everything on it, which to me all adds to that vintagey feel. So I felt like I wanted to frame it up with a little bit of fabric. So I've got this, I don't know what this fabric is. I bought it, like a whole roll of it at at a thrift store. And it frays absolutely beautifully. So, and I just want the edges of it showing. So, and I did, when I tore it there, do you see how much of that? So I trimmed down my fraying. But then I'm going to pull up additional bits of the threads in it. I think that's what I like about this, is the weave of it is really easy to pull apart. So I'm gonna trim this down to just slightly larger than my photo, and pull out extra threads so I have plenty of that fraying around the edges. And I'm not positive if this photo, when I cut it, was a perfect square or not. I didn't measure it. I was just trying to get straight edges because I took it and the altered paper I took to my guillotine cutter to cut it down. So I've also got this piece of cardboard, and what I want to do is put the cardboard behind all of this, but I'm using it right now as like a protective surface because there's just so much on my desk. I was like, okay, I need to not mess up all the things that are on my desk. So I'm going to use the Beacon 3-in-1, putting it directly on the back of my photo. And then I'm going to take as much care as I can to lay the photo down on that piece of fabric. And then I'm going to, and it dries pretty quickly. So I'm going to then measure out slightly smaller than my photo on this piece of cardboard, and then cut it down so that I can glue it back to the back of the photo to give it a little lift from the background. It's something about, especially with like these shadow boxes, I love having the layers of things at different heights and depths of them. So this works out pretty great. And I auditioned a bunch of different pieces, and you can kind of see that in my little bowl at the top left there. I do have a yellow game piece that I thought maybe would be fun to use, but you'll see once I get to this, the yellow just felt like it was drawing from some of the other elements that I ended up with a translucent blue one that I'll end up putting in there. So, all right, so I glued that down, and now it's time to kind of start assembling everything in this assemblage. I'm using matte gel medium, putting it all over the inside of the back of my box. Sorry, my head's getting in there, trying to make sure I've got my glue everywhere. And then I am slipping in my dyed paper. Now this paper originally was a notebook page that somebody had done genealogy on, and then from there I bought it at an estate sale and eco printed on it, and then of course put it in that rest dye. So it's gone through the paces, guys. And it is one of the vintage things in here, along with the photo and the buttons and the key. And I've got a lot of somethings vintage in here. So I did use a hotel key card to kind of help smooth out. This isn't super smooth. I don't mind the wrinkles in it. It gives additional texture in here, but also to press down my paper into all the edges. So, and then I covered the whole thing with more of the matte gel to make sure it's well stuck down.
I'll use my heat tool to dry it real quick, because I was anxious to move on, to keep moving, because I knew that this next thing was going to take a little bit of time, because I was going to need to use 2 different methods to get everything cured in here. And I wanted to get pictures before the end of the day, because y'all, this of all of my Seek Gather Creates this month, this one took the longest. So I was anxious to just get it done. So in here I am using some E6000, and this is a rusty bottle cap that I found in a parking lot. So just like these kids on the sidewalk looking down and finding things, at least that's my interpretation of that photo. These are some of the things I have found. And also I was having trouble with my E6000. I'm getting to the end of it, and it is starting to, like, I don't know, solidify on me or something. And my little toothpaste tube thing was just not where, I struggled with this, getting the E6000 out of here. So I've also got, this is a key that I added a patina to, I believe, with just some vinegar and salt. It's been a long time, y'all. Let's say like 8 to 12 years since I altered that key. It's been a long time. And then I've got this little button here that's going to go also on the like background of this. So, and everything's going to get placed there. And then while it is getting placed, you can see my photo off to the side with 2 more buttons. And I'm going to work basically on top of my sanding block here, because it was just easier to help transfer everything. I was trying to keep everything in place so that I got it in the places I had auditioned it at. Now, y'all didn't get to see some of that auditioning because, well, that would have made this video so much longer, because it was a lot of auditioning. Alright, so I'm going to glue both of these buttons down, and y'all, I had no patience for waiting for these to dry, so I'm going to get them kind of like in place. And that both these 2 buttons both still have the original thread on them that they were sewn down with, and I kind of loved that, because it kept the history of those buttons kind of there with them. So you see me, I'm giving it just a second, and I'm like, okay, am I going to wait and let everything dry? Am I going to? And I was like, no, I really don't want to wait. I'm going to go ahead and like try to fix this E6000, and then go ahead and add glue to the back of the cardboard. But y'all, that bigger button here in just a second, I think, is going to give way the weight of it, and the fact that that E6000 is not dry. You see me, oh my gosh, I'm struggling with it so much, and I didn't want to. I am going to put it down with the glue on my sanding block here in a second. I don't know, see that button fell off, and I'm like, okay, stop putting it on the sanding block. You're just getting E6000 everywhere. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a mess. So then I placed my little picture in there, and I'm going to weigh it down with one of my weights. And y'all, I walked away for about an hour and let everything kind of cure, because my next 2 pieces are my game piece and my little jar with the word found in it. And these I needed to sit like this to let gravity kind of take hold of them. So I'm getting these 6,000. I did mess with that a little bit more, and it was coming out better at that point. So getting those in place, I did move that little jar a little bit, so some of the E6000 is down there at the bottom, but I'm going to use my toothpick to pull it up. And y'all, again, I walked away and came back, and it's all glued in. And I don't know what was wrong with me, why I couldn't just think, okay, just throw a bunch of found objects in here. But y'all, it came together beautifully, and sometimes it's the inks that makes things a little bit better. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed the Seek, Gather, Create challenge as much as I have. It always inspires some of the best work out of me, and it makes me want to kind of like work with prompts like this more often. So if you like this or have any questions, please let me know below. And thanks for coming by and spending this time with me. I'll see y'all later with more. Bye.